Alright class, now we're going to talk about transplanting. I brought some material here to show you how to transplant. The first thing about transplanting is making sure you have a plan. For instance, these Coreopsis were seeded so that the plugs could grow on a schedule. This is considered a plug, on a schedule, and then be transplanted into these 6.5-inch pots on a schedule so that we know in the first week of May we can sell a rooted Coreopsis plant in this size of container. Alright, and so to do that, what I would do is push from the bottom and give a little squeeze and let gravity do the work for bringing this plant out. If I was doing all of these at once, I would tip it over, I'd just bang on the bottom, all the little plugs would fall out. Here is my little Coreopsis plug, and you can see the roots are perfect. They're not so mashed that it's solid, but they're loose enough that it's staying together, but it's loose enough that it's not root bound. And so I'm going to take this plant. The way I do it is I fill my container with soil to the level that I desire. In this case, this peat perlite mixture, I'm going to put it about 1/2 inch from the top. I'm going to punch my hole in there with my fingers, drop my Coreopsis in there. I can tuck it in a little bit, or I can water it in. Obviously, every time after you transplant, you're going from moist material to dry material. You don't want to wait for the system to come on, so you're going to go ahead and water this right away. Watering also not only gives the plant a chance, but it also helps this peat moss from becoming resistant to water penetrating it. So you want to keep it moist, it settles the root. If you're doing these and you got 1,000 the plant, you might punch your fingers in there, stick a plant in there, or even have an assembly line where people are doing this by hand. This can also be mechanized as well. Some of the bigger production places have huge mechanized operations where control systems are punching and dropping plugs, and then it's watering on a conveyor belt and then going to the production areas. Okay, Coreopsis ready to go. Another example here, I have a honeysuckle plant that's been growing for quite a while. Now this honeysuckle is going to get quite large, and I intend for it to go in a hanging basket. It's going to trail over, it's going to grow. But we didn't immediately stick this plant right into here. We let it grow in this size of a pot. It's been in here for quite some time, so I'm going to let gravity do the work, give it a bit of a squeeze, and now I see the roots are pretty much tangled up and root bound. Since this plant's going to get pretty big, we want to do a little snip, snip, snip on all the sides, and maybe just a little teasing away of those roots. Every spot where roots are cut, those roots will die, but these roots will branch out. And so we don't want to have this root bound mass. Could you imagine if this was an oak tree intended to grow with a trunk that's 10 foot in diameter? All these roots, as they expand, would just continue to choke off this plant and girdle it. The honeysuckle not so much, but we still want to encourage side branching. So in this case, I have my nice honeysuckle that's been cut, loosened up a little bit. You have to be careful as well, because a really leafy vegetative plant, you can't cut it and tease it out too much, because then it'll go into shock. I'm going to make a nice big hole in the middle. I'm going to seed it there, tuck it in, and this plant will grow to fill this container. So those are some things to keep in mind when transplanting.